The conference room aboard the Galactic Council station gleamed like a jewel suspended in the void. Inside, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat among delegates from 40 species, offering a polite smile as the Krathax representative bragged about his people's military might. The towering reptilian, nearly 3 meters tall and encased in natural armor capable of deflecting most weapons, loomed over her. "Your species has much to learn about true war," the Krathax said, amusement glinting in his yellow eyes. "Humans are merchants and artists. You craft beauty, but you cannot fight." Sarah's smile didn't waver. She was used to this. 3 centuries had passed since humanity had joined the Council. In all that time, they had been peaceful, running merchant convoys, creating music and art admired across the stars, choosing dialogue over violence. The galaxy saw them as gentle. "We prefer peace," Sarah replied evenly. "There is profit in peace." Laughter rippled through the chamber, even from the delicate, flower-like Valorans. Everyone knew humans lacked fangs, armor, or venom. They were fragile apes who had merely learned to travel the stars. The laughter died when the alarms erupted. Red light flooded the chamber as the station quaked. Through the vast windows, Sarah saw fire bloom in the darkness, ships bursting apart, hundreds of them. The Council's defense fleet was dying. "What's happening?" cried a Valoran, its petals trembling. The main display flared to life, showing a sight that made Sarah's blood freeze. From the depths of dark space, shapes emerged, black, writhing, alive. They moved with terrifying precision like a single organism. "The Devourers," whispered an ancient Velcron counselor, his limbs shaking. "They have returned." Sarah had heard the legends, stories dismissed as superstition. The Devourers were said to be a hive mind that consumed all in their path. Eons ago, they had feasted on galaxies before vanishing into dormancy. Now they were awake and starving. The station shuddered again, metal groaning under the assault. Sarah gripped the table to stay upright. Through the window, she saw a council warship engage the enemy. The Devourers swarmed it like a frenzy of piranhas. Within seconds, the once proud vessel was shredded to debris. "We must evacuate!" The Krathax delegate roared, his bravado gone, replaced by sheer panic. But there was nowhere to run. The Devourers had completely encircled the station, sealing off every escape corridor. More explosions flickered in the void. The Council's defense line was collapsing. Then Sarah felt it, a strange heat blooming in her chest. Her pulse thundered. Her fingers curled into fists. It wasn't fear. It was something older, buried deep within. On the screens, she watched 3 human merchant ships attempt to flee, only to be hunted down and obliterated. One by one, her people died in bursts of flame. The heat inside her ignited into a blaze. Her senses sharpened. Time slowed. She began to see patterns in the Devourers' movements, gaps in their coordination, vulnerabilities hidden in the chaos. "We need to fight," she heard herself say. Her voice was harder, colder. The delegates turned toward her, some confused, others pitying. "Fight? Humans can't fight," one muttered. They had no armies, no weapons, just words and art. But Sarah's mind was racing, alive with tactics, formations, counterstrikes. Knowledge she didn't remember learning flooded her. It felt like awakening from a long dream. The station convulsed as atmosphere vented through a breach. Delegates screamed, scrambling for escape pods. Sarah did not move. She stood before the viewport, staring into the storm of alien forms. Deep within her genes, something ancient stirred, memories long suppressed. Her ancestors whispered from the dark of history, showing her things both terrible and magnificent, truths humanity had chosen to bury. A Devourer ship drifted close to the station, and Sarah saw it, clearly, completely. Its hull was alive, organic, pulsing like a monstrous heart. Gunports opened across its surface, glowing with gathering energy. It was preparing to fire, to annihilate everyone aboard. Sarah's hand moved before thought could form. She slammed her fist into the emergency panel. The station's distress beacon flared to life, broadcasting across every frequency, not just to the Council, but to every human ship, every colony within reach. The message was simple. Humans are under attack. Humans are dying. Far below Earth's surface, in bunkers sealed for 3 centuries, something ancient heard that call. Machines older than the Council itself stirred from dormancy. Systems reactivated. Cores spun to life. Humanity's forgotten war engines were waking. Sarah didn't know this. All she felt was the inferno spreading through her veins. She looked at the Devourer ship charging its weapons, and instead of fear, she felt rage. Cold, patient, calculating rage. The kind that waits. The kind that wins. The galaxy had called humans soft, fragile, harmless. The galaxy had forgotten. But Sarah was remembering, and soon everyone else would too. Beneath their music and trade, beneath their smiles, humans had always been something else entirely. The Devourers thought they had found prey. They were about to learn they had cornered predators. The stars would remember why humanity had buried its past, why it had locked away its weapons, its knowledge, its instincts. Because when awakened, humanity was the most dangerous thing ever born from gravity and blood. The war gods were stirring, and this time, mercy was not part of the design. Captain James Rodriguez stood on the bridge of his merchant vessel when the distress call echoed through the comms. His ship carried grain and textiles, routine, peaceful work. The kind of life humans had chosen. But as the message repeated, humans under attack. Devourers at the Council station, something deep within him shifted. A door opened. His fingers moved across the controls, not the civilian ones he used daily, but others. Hidden, waiting. Panels in the cargo bay slid aside. The grain containers were hollow. Beneath them slept railguns, missile tubes, and shield emitters. His merchant ship became a warship. "Captain?" His first officer gasped. "What are you doing? How did you know those were there?" James didn't answer. He couldn't. Memories not his own surged behind his eyes, his grandfather's battles, his great-grandmother's victories. An inheritance written in DNA, genetic memory awakening at last, locked away until needed. James saw visions, Earth aflame, skies black with smoke. He saw humanity tearing itself apart, not against aliens, but against itself. 200 years of slaughter, the War of Ashes, humanity's final civil war. Nations fought over resources, ideologies, and faith. Nuclear fire turned cities to glass. Bioweapons unleashed plagues. Autonomous AIs hunted without conscience. Humanity came within a breath of extinction. Yet even then, they learned. Humans always learned, especially how to kill. When the ashes settled and there was nothing left worth conquering, the survivors faced their creation with horror. They had built weapons that could shatter planets, viruses that could erase life, machines that could wage eternal war. So they made a choice, the great forgetting. The weapons were buried, the bunkers sealed. Humanity rewrote its own genome, suppressing the instincts that had once made them gods of war. They taught peace, art, and trade. For 3 centuries, they prospered. They smiled, spread across the stars, and joined the Galactic Council. The galaxy believed them harmless. Humanity believed it too, but the instincts were never gone. Only dormant, sleeping. James opened a star chart. His hands moved without hesitation, marking forbidden coordinates, dead worlds, sealed systems, places humanity had vowed never to return. "Send this to all human vessels," he ordered. "Emergency Protocol Omega, Captain?" His first officer asked, confused. "There's no Protocol Omega in the database." "Check again," James replied. "Deep storage. Authorization Rodriguez Alpha 77. The officer's eyes widened as encrypted data flooded his console. This is military grade. How do you—" "We're not merchants anymore," James said quietly. "Send the message. Then set course for the nearest cache. We have work to do." Across human space, echoes stirred. On Earth, deep beneath the crust, titanic blast doors began to open. Facilities the size of cities rumbled awake. Machines dreamed in metal and code, their long sleep ending. Dr. Sarah Chen's cousin was working at the Museum of Human History when the alarms blared. She sprinted to the sealed wing, off-limits to the public, protected by 5 security layers. Inside were relics of the War of Ashes, armor, weapons, archives. And one device more precious than all the rest, a memory vault. She placed her hand on the scanner. DNA verification complete. "Play historical file 777, she said. A hologram shimmered to life, an old woman with weary eyes. The timestamp read, 3 centuries ago. If you are watching this, the woman said, her voice solemn, then humanity is under threat. You must remember what we chose to forget. You must understand why we buried this knowledge. The hologram shifted. Scenes of burning cities, endless ruin, humanity's self-inflicted nightmare. Oceans boiled, cities burned, millions died. But the hologram showed more than horror. It revealed truth. Humanity had faced the devourers before. They came 800 years ago, the old woman said, her voice trembling. Long before spaceflight. They sent scouts to test us. They thought we were easy prey. Images filled the air, primitive Earth under siege. Human soldiers with crude rifles fighting in shattered cities. Scientists unleashing bioweapons tailored to devourer biology. Guerrilla units using brutal tactics, ambushes, traps, and firestorms so relentless the hive itself recoiled. We didn't just survive, the woman continued. We hunted them. We followed their trails across the stars. We found their nests and burned them. We killed so many that they fled into darkness. And they remembered us. The hologram flickered, her eyes growing mournful. But we paid a price. The war made us monsters. It taught us to love destruction. When the devourers were gone, we turned those weapons inward. The War of Ashes was our punishment for forgetting what mercy meant. Her face filled the projection. Now you must choose. Awaken the weapons. Awaken the instincts. Do what you must to survive. But remember what it cost us last time. The greatest enemy you face is not out there. It's the darkness within. The hologram faded to black. Across Earth, orbital defense platforms roared to life. In asteroid belts, secret foundries began forging warships. On distant colonies, civilians who thought they were farmers and teachers moved with sudden purpose. Buried memories guided their hands. Soldiers who didn't know they were soldiers no longer hesitated. The Galactic Council sent desperate transmissions to human space, pleading for aid, medical ships, transports, anything. The reply they received silenced every chamber. Maintain distance from all human vessels. We are no longer merchants. We are no longer artists. Until this threat is destroyed, we are weapons. Keep your people away from ours. We cannot guarantee their safety. It was signed by someone calling themselves Lord Commander of the Human Defense Force, a title extinct for 3 centuries. The galaxy was about to relearn what humanity had buried. They would understand why the devourers had hidden for 800 years. The war gods had awoken, and they remembered everything. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in what had once been an art gallery on New Terra. 2 weeks ago, it displayed paintings and sculptures. Children came for field trips. Now it forged weapons. The transformation had taken less than 72 hours. Beneath the elegant facade, hidden factories had waited for this moment. Machinery thundered day and night, producing armor, drones, and ammunition. Sarah watched young men and women at the lines, barely 20 years old. Yesterday's artists and musicians, now assembling weapons with precision born of instinct. Their hands moved like they'd done it before, because somewhere deep in their blood, they had, even though they had never been trained. It's the genetic memory, explained Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a biologist who once studied alien flora but now studied humanity itself. When we rewrote our DNA 3 centuries ago, we didn't erase the knowledge. We buried it, locked it behind biochemical triggers. The distress call activated those triggers. So everyone just knows how to fight? Sarah asked. Not exactly, Tanaka replied. Each person carries fragments of what we used to be. Some recall tactics, others, engineering or weaponry. Some are born commanders. It's like humanity was once a vast war machine, dismantled into 1,000 parts. Now the pieces are reconnecting. Sarah felt it too. Once she had been a diplomat, trained in empathy, negotiation, words. Now she saw the world through lines of fire and angles of cover. Every plan unfolded in her mind like a battle map. Every person was a potential ally or a threat. It terrified her. This wasn't who she had chosen to be, but it was who she was, who all humans were beneath the peace and smiles. A young man approached. Marcus, once a music teacher, now commander of an attack drone squadron. Ambassador, he said, his tone flat and controlled. We're ready for the demonstration. They walked together to the testing range beyond the city. The Galactic Council had sent observers, Krathax, Valoran, Velkurin. The Krathax commander laughed when he saw the small human soldiers, unarmored and bare of claws. This is your army? He scoffed. Artists pretending to fight? Sarah said nothing. She nodded to Marcus. The demonstration began. Human troops moved through the battlefield like shadows, silent, fluid, lethal. They didn't rely on brute force or heavy armor. They used cover, misdirection, and cooperation. Above them, drones darted like birds, each synchronized through neural links that had awakened weeks earlier. Every drone was an extension of its operator. 90 seconds later, all enemy targets were neutralized. 0 casualties. 1/10 the ammunition. Efficiency, Sarah said calmly. We don't waste bullets, lives, or time. The War of Ashes taught us that. Every resource matters, especially people. The Krathax commander was silent now. The humans continued. They demonstrated psychological tactics that shattered AI opponents. They showed weapons that rewrote the rules of warfare. One in particular made every alien observer recoil. It was called the Silence. It didn't burn. It didn't explode. It simply erased. Matter touched by it ceased to exist, gone, as though it had never been. That's impossible, whispered a Velkurin scientist. Where does it go? We don't know, Dr. Tanaka admitted. We built it during the War of Ashes, used it 3 times. Then we buried it because it scared us. It still does. But we fear the Devourers more, the Council observers murmured in uneasy tones. Some begged for human aid. Others trembled at what humans had become. You are not the species we knew, said the Valoran delegate, petals drawn tight. What happened to the gentle merchants and artists? We are still here, Sarah answered softly. We chose peace once. Now we choose war because survival demands it. But make no mistake, we've always been both. The Krathax commander met her gaze, his arrogance replaced by something new, respect tinged with fear. And when the Devourers are gone? He asked quietly. What then? Sarah had no answer. The question haunted her. Once you wake a weapon, can you ever make it sleep again? The Council's vote was unanimous. Humanity was given full military command, not out of trust, but necessity. The Devourers were winning everywhere. Only humans offered hope. But that hope carried a terrible cost. Council ethics boards condemned human tactics, too ruthless, too calculated. A single human platoon held their ground for 3 days, surrounded. When relief arrived, every human was dead. But 3,000 Devourers lay with them. They could have retreated, a Valoran officer protested. We would have allowed it. Sarah's reply was quiet, almost mournful. They ran the probabilities. Staying saved more lives overall, so they stayed. That's monstrous, the officer whispered. That's war, Sarah said. The kind humanity excels at. The kind we swore never to fight again. 2 weeks later came the first major battle. The Devourers struck the colony of Epsilon 7, home to 4 million Velkurin civilians. The Council fleet defended bravely, but within an hour, 60% of their ships were gone. Then the human fleet arrived. Only 30 ships. Smaller, faster, alive with purpose. They didn't form lines or shields. They attacked. They plunged into the swarm like wolves among sheep. Their armor was light, their movements unpredictable. When the Devourers tried to envelop them, the humans split apart, darting through the chaos like a single living mind. Moon didn't explode, it unraveled. Its structure folded in on itself like paper burning from the inside out. Space distorted, light bent, and then the moon was simply gone. The gravity shock wave ripped through the Devourer formation, tearing ships apart, warping hulls, and crushing organic vessels into molten debris. Thousands of enemy ships died in silence. When the light faded, a quarter of the Devourer fleet was gone. The rest retreated. For the first time in recorded history, the hive mind felt something new. Fear. The Council delegates screamed through the comm channels. You cannot use that weapon again. You'll destabilize the system. You'll doom us all. Marcus didn't respond. His eyes were cold. The system's stable, he said. We won. Then he turned to his crew. Prepare the fleet for pursuit. The humans didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They simply followed orders. Every one of them felt the same quiet clarity, the same ancient rhythm thrumming through their blood. It wasn't joy. It wasn't pride. It was purpose. Humanity had always built things that reflected their hearts. Art, music, beauty. But now the reflection was war. Perfect, merciless war. On Earth, deep beneath the crust, the bunkers continued to open. Machines built before the War of Ashes came online. AI overseers reactivated their directives. Names like Oblivion Engine, Thanatos Array, and Leviathan Net appeared on command screens that hadn't lit in centuries. In orbit, half-built ships began to assemble themselves, responding to the ancient protocols buried in every human genetic code. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood in a command vault, watching the feeds come alive. "They're all waking," she whispered. "Every failsafe, every weapon we swore never to use." Her assistant looked terrified. "Can we stop it?" Yuki shook her head. "It's not about control anymore. The code recognizes an extinction-level threat. It's acting on instinct, humanity's instinct." Across the stars, the Devourers regrouped. They sent waves of new ships evolving faster than ever, but the humans adapted faster still. They combined biology with machine, strategy with emotion, chaos with logic. They became something new, something that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. When the second battle came, the Devourers tried to predict human tactics. They failed. When they tried to overwhelm, humans divided. When they tried to isolate, humans multiplied. Every death fed the pattern. Every loss became fuel. From the bridge of Prometheus, Admiral Webb watched another Devourer swarm collapse under precision strikes. He knew what they were becoming, and it terrified him. "We're winning," his XO said quietly. "Yes," Marcus replied. And that's the problem. Because deep down, he remembered what Dr. Tanaka had said before the first shot was ever fired. The war gods don't sleep. They wait. And now they were wide awake. The moon simply disintegrated. No blast, no burning. It ceased to be a moon and unfurled into a spreading veil of stone and particles. The Devourer Armada halted its advance. The hive consciousness faltered. It had encountered weapons in the past, but this was not the same. This was the casual annihilation of a celestial body. It was power far beyond what the hive had expected from these small creatures. "Send them a message," Marcus ordered. "A tight beam. Target their command vessel only." "What message, sir?" asked the comms officer. "Tell them that was a demonstration. Warn them the next strike will hit their fleet. Tell them they have 10 minutes to withdraw, or we will erase 300 of their ships from existence." The comms officer hesitated. "Sir, that's a bluff. Planet Cracker needs 2 hours." "They don't know." "Send it." The Devourer formation faltered. For the first time since Awakening, the hive felt doubt. The formation pulled back. The Velran homeworld was preserved without another shot being fired. But the cost was stark. The galaxy now understood that humans possessed weapons capable of unmaking worlds. Fear saturated the council chambers. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the assembly, attempting to explain. Attempting to justify. How could she explain the cold calculus of total war? One asked. "You demolished the moon to prove a point," the Valoran delegate replied, her petals trembling with distress. "What else will you destroy?" "Whatever it takes to win," Sarah said simply. "That's what you asked us to do. You asked us to save the galaxy. We're doing it. Not like this. Not with such brutality." Sarah felt tired. She had not slept properly in weeks. None of the humans had. They were running on combat stimulants and genetic memory and the cold certainty that losing meant extinction. "You want us to fight pretty," she said. "To follow rules. To be honorable." But the Devourers don't care about honor. They care about consuming everything. So we fight the way that wins. We use psychology. We use terror. We use overwhelming force because that's what works. The council argued for hours. But in the end, they let humans continue. Because the humans were winning. Fleet battles became human specialties. Not because humans had better ships. They didn't, but they had better tactics. They understood something the other species didn't. War was not about honor. It was about winning. Human boarding parties attacked Devourer ships using tactics that horrified other species. They didn't wear heavy armor. They wore light suits that let them move fast. They carried weapons designed to spread fear and confusion. One weapon was called the Shriek. It emitted sounds that drove the devourers insane. The hive mind relied on coordination. The shriek destroyed that coordination. Individual devourers began attacking each other. Another weapon was biological, a virus designed specifically to target devourer neural tissue. It spread through their ships like wildfire. It didn't kill them. It made them suffer. It made them afraid. "This is chemical warfare," a Krathax general protested. "This is against the galactic conventions." "The devourers are not signatories to any convention," Marcus replied. "And we're not trying to make them surrender. We're trying to make them extinct." That word hung in the air. Extinct. Dr. Tanaka pulled Sarah aside one night in the command center. The biologist looked haunted. "I've been researching our history," she said quietly. "The sealed records from 800 years ago when the devourers first came to Earth." "What did you find?" "We didn't just defeat them. We hunted them. We tracked them to their breeding grounds. We found their home system." Sarah felt cold. "And we killed them all. Every ship, every nest, every spawning pool. We left one group alive, just enough to survive. We wanted them to remember. We wanted them to tell other devourers what happened when they attacked humanity. That's genocide. That's what saved Earth. The devourers fled to the other side of the galaxy and hid for 800 years. They only came back because they thought we were gone, thought we were extinct or changed." Sarah understood now. "They didn't know we were the same species, the peaceful merchants and artists. They didn't realize we were the same humans who almost exterminated them. But they're learning now." Tanaka said, "Every battle, every weapon we deploy, they're remembering. The hive mind has racial memory just like we do. They're starting to remember what we did to them, and they were terrified." The war turned. The devourers began retreating from human fleets. They avoided confrontation. They ran instead of fighting. The hive mind that had consumed galaxies was fleeing from creatures barely 2 meters tall. But human commanders did not let them run. They pursued. They hunted. They followed the devourers across star systems. Some human officers began to enjoy it. That was the danger Sarah saw. The weapons had woken. The instincts had activated. But so had something else. The capacity for cruelty. The enjoyment of victory. The thrill of the hunt. "We're becoming what we were," Sarah said to Marcus one day. "During the War of Ashes, we're becoming monsters." Marcus looked at her with cold eyes. "We're becoming what we need to be, what we've always been, God-killers. We're the species that looks at impossible odds and wins anyway. That's not monstrous. That's human. And after, when the devourers are gone, then we bury it again like we did before. Will we be able to? Or will we turn these weapons on each other again?" Marcus had no answer. No one did. The war gods were awake and winning, but the price was becoming clear. Not just the lives lost in battle, but the cost to humanity's soul. They had chosen to be peaceful 300 years ago. They had buried their capacity for violence. Now that capacity was unleashed again, and everyone wondered if they could ever put it back. The human fleet cornered the last major devourer force at the galactic rim. 3 years had passed since the war began. The devourers had been pushed back system by system. Their numbers had decreased from millions of ships to barely 50,000. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of Prometheus and watched the enemy fleet on his screens. Behind him, the combined human armada waited. 5,000 warships, each one crewed by humans who had forgotten what peace felt like. "We have them," his tactical officer said. Her voice carried satisfaction. After 3 years of fighting, victory was close. But Marcus felt no joy. He felt empty. He had been a merchant captain once. He had transported grain and textiles. He had enjoyed the quiet of space. Now he was a killer. They all were. Ambassador Sarah Chen entered the bridge. She looked older than 3 years should account for. War-aged people in ways time alone could not. "The Council is demanding we let them surrender," she said. "The devourers don't surrender. They're a hive mind. They only understand extinction or survival." Then the war ended not with extinction, but with imprisonment. The galaxy celebrated. They called it a great victory. They praised human mercy for sparing the devourers, but mercy had nothing to do with it. Humanity had simply looked into the darkness and chosen not to become it. 3 million humans were dead. The merchants and artists were gone. Every survivor now knew what they were capable of, what their species had always been capable of, and so began the second forgetting. The weapons were sealed. The bunkers were closed. The warships became merchants again. Children were taught to paint, to sing, to prefer peace. But this time, the memories were not buried as deep. The kill switches remained active. The monitoring stations at the galactic rim stayed online. Humanity chose peace, but they remembered war. Sarah Chen stood in the rebuilt art gallery on New Terra. Paintings and sculptures lined the halls once more. Children came on field trips laughing beneath the soft light. Beauty had returned, but in the basement below, the weapons still waited, close enough to reach, close enough to use, just in case. Sarah watched the children paint stars and worlds, scenes of peace and color. She hoped they would never have to become what their parents once were. Yet she knew the truth. The war gods were not gone. They were sleeping, waiting, ready. A young girl approached, holding up a painting of Earth surrounded by flowers. "Do you like it?" she asked shyly. "My teacher says humans are artists. We make beautiful things." Sarah smiled, warm and genuine. "Yes," she said softly. "That's what we are. Artists who make beautiful things." She didn't add the rest. Didn't say what every human knew but rarely spoke aloud, that they were artists who made beautiful things, until someone threatened them. Then they became something else entirely. The galaxy had learned what humanity truly was. Not just one thing or the other. Not just artists or warriors, but both. Always both. Dormant were gods who chose peace, who worked for peace, who taught their children peace, but who would become gods of war again if they were ever given no choice. The galaxy would not forget that lesson. Neither would humanity. Sarah looked out the window toward the stars. Somewhere beyond the rim, the devourers waited in their prison of dead suns, alive but trapped, remembering, and humanity watched back. The war gods slept, but they were not dead. They were never dead. Just waiting, always waiting, ready to wake when needed. That was the truth the galaxy had forgotten. The truth humanity had tried to forget. Some species evolved to be strong. Some evolved to be fast. Some evolved to be clever. Humans evolved to survive, no matter the cost, no matter what they had to become. That was what made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not their cruelty, but their resolve. Not their rage, but their will. They would become monsters if they had to. Then, when the darkness passed, they would step back from the edge, bury their weapons, and teach their children to paint again. That was what made them war gods. Not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to choose when to destroy and when to walk away. The galaxy understood now. Humanity was not what it appeared to be. It was something far more complex, far more dangerous, and far more necessary. They were proof that intelligence could choose peace, that warriors could choose mercy, that war gods could choose to sleep, as long as they were allowed to sleep. But if anyone was foolish enough to wake them again, well, the devourers could tell them how that ended, trapped in a prison of dead stars. Alive but defeated, surviving but not living, the galaxy remembered. So did humanity. The war gods slept, and the galaxy was safer for it.